Hey everybody, it's Jay with Techhole Productions, and today we're going to talk about RCA's new Surface Pro Killer. Stay tuned. I've noticed a bit of a trend. You guys like two things. You guys like PF Sense, and you guys like terrible tablets from Walmart. Alliteration. So I thought, hey, why don't we do a whole bunch more of that kind of stuff? I was wandering the Walmart a couple weeks back, and I walked through their electronics section, as I tend to do, and I looked at their overpriced cables and their overpriced hard drives, and I got to their underpriced laptop sections. I saw something that I hadn't seen in quite a while. A handful of years ago, I did that review on the Nextbook Flex 11.
Hey everybody, it's Jay with Techhole Productions. Today I'm going to review the Nextbook Flex 11.
Since then, I had not seen a single cheap Windows tablet at the Walmart. And as I was walking through there, I saw three. And the cheapest of the three was the RCA Cambio. It weighed in at about $150. I did not buy it from Walmart because Walmart sucks. I picked it up on Amazon, and it was actually sub $100 if you wanted the pink one. I wanted the blue one, so it was $105. I'm like, boy, this thing could be a heck of a tablet. What my goal really here, it's not just to find terrible products and talk about how terrible they are, although that's great too when that happens. My goal is really to find the ideal dirt cheap x86 Windows tablet. The idea being that you can have a mostly functional Windows tablet that is so inexpensive that you can just throw it in a backpack and kick it around in the back of your car, in the bed of your truck or whatever, and whip it out whenever you need it. And when it breaks, you don't care, and you can just go buy another one. And I was hoping I would find that here with the RCA Cambio Tablet Portable 2-in-1. I didn't know that RCA was still a company. I'm not 100% sure that they are. So this was imported by RCA from AVC Multimedia out of Ontario, strangely enough. So it's an x86 Windows tablet. It comes with Windows 10 Home. It has a battery, dual cameras, 10-inch HD display, 32 gigs of storage, and 2 gigs of RAM. The RAM didn't bother me that much. 32 gigs of storage is almost laughable, but shockingly enough, that's what I'm seeing on a lot of these cheap laptops and cheap tablets. So I don't know if there's like a specific system on a chip that just ships with 2 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of flash or what. I feel like that's shockingly small, but this device does have a micro SD slot, so I thought, hey, if it's great, good, I can put an SD card in there and upgrade the storage. So if we take a look at the box here, it looks a whole awful lot like a Microsoft Surface Pro, right? It's got that little kickstand in the back. It's got the keyboard here. Let's talk about how it's not. So this thing, I got it out of the box, right? I picked it up out of the box like this, and at first I was a little bit impressed. I liked the style of this thing, really. I don't think they did any of these things for aesthetic reasons. I think this is a device that was built down to a very specific price. And they cut corners everywhere they could. But there are things I like about it. There are exposed screws on the side. And what was that? Okay. There are exposed screws on the side, and I kind of actually like that. I prefer that to a little tablet being like clipped together. You can't get it apart. It kind of adds to that industrial look and feel that I want in the world's cheapest x86 tablet. So I liked that, right? And kind of looking around, it's got USB-A, it's got micro B for charging, which is super, super convenient, and I really like that. Mini HDMI, it's got this little slot cover that is just god-awful because it doesn't stay in there. I don't know what it's for. You're going to lose it immediately. What a terrible, terrible thing. The other side has nothing on it, except it has this, like, embossed, like, the FCC ID and the model number and stuff on the side. There's no real reason to do that, I don't think. But I honestly think it looks a little bit cool. So I get this thing out of the box. I'm like, hey, that's pretty neat. And I go to pick it up, and like the keyboard falls off. And I'm like, oh, whatever. So I stick the keyboard back on it. I'm not doing this on purpose. Swear to God, I'm not. So you stick the keyboard back on, and I realized that it doesn't hold firm against the screen, right? It wants to shift that way or this, and it doesn't hold together. It's almost like the keyboard was an afterthought. So I'm like, whatever, not that big of a deal, right? So I whip the kickstand out, and that's when I realized that it's like the world's chintziest kickstand, but they've also put some money into it in some places where maybe they shouldn't have. So they put enough money in it so that it's got a couple magnets, right? And when you close it, it snaps shut. So they obviously took that cue from Microsoft and their Surface, and that's cool. It actually adds a nice little feel to it, but it goes out this far and only this far, and you'll kind of hear like right? You hear that? It almost sounds like there's a strap in there that's going taut and you can't. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's a little plastic strap. Imagine like a thin high-pitched ribbon cable, right? Inside of a monitor. Like, let's say you had a monitor and you opened it up to try to fix it, and you ended up slicing this little ribbon cable in half, right? That's this type of ribbon cable. And this cable's gonna fail. It's the wrong. That's not what you use that ribbon cable for. But that's what keeps this from. That's fine. Whatever, right? So you open it up and you go to put it on the table, and the thing starts closing a little bit, and then but that's fine. So you kind of pop it back open, and you pop that down, and you realize how loud this keyboard is because it's so heavy. It's very heavy. Like, that keyboard is probably on the order of the weight of my Surface Pro. I exaggerate, but it's very heavy. It's very heavy. But that's fine, right? So let's plug this thing in, because I think I probably let the up to 6-hour battery go dead. So we'll talk about why that happens a little bit too, because there's a reason. All right, so we'll bring this thing up. Are you going to power on? Maybe. We'll see. Come on, you bastard. Okay. All right, well, you're not going to turn on, and that's fine. So we'll talk about aesthetic things, right? The big thing that kills me, on this device is that the magnets that hold the keyboard on aren't actually strong enough to hold the keyboard on. Like, I can take my Surface Pro and I can hold it by the keyboard and it'll hold the device. This device can't even hold the keyboard. And that's not the end of the... That's really not the end of the world either. But it sucks, right? It does suck. On most Windows tablets, you expect to see something like this where you, like, click the keyboard up like this, and then you can set the whole contraption on your lap and use it a lot like a laptop. But this doesn't do that. You don't have that positive click up here. You just have a tablet that's precariously resting on your knees with a keyboard that won't stay straight, and then it falls. Well, I'm not going to make it do it. You shift a little bit and the thing falls, and then it pulls itself off the keyboard and it falls to the ground. When I was reviewing that Nextbook Flex 11 100,000 years ago, I actually spent a legitimate week with it, right? I didn't use my desktop and I didn't use my iPad. I said that in the video. I'm just recounting, yada, yada, yada. I didn't use my desktop or my iPad for like a straight week. No joke. Because it was so convenient to use this thing. Or at least it was less inconvenient than getting up off the couch to go to my office and get the iPad or whatever, right? I used this for like 2 hours and I couldn't stand it anymore. I went as far as trying to install games on it. I couldn't stand it anymore. I just could not. And I packed it up and set it to the side. And I kind of set it in the corner of the room, and I'm like, I don't even want to talk about this thing. I don't want to look at it. I don't want anything to do with this thing. So, but last night, I got up and I said, you know what? You have to talk about this thing because you bought this stupid $100 RCA tablet. And you're going to get no value out of this thing at all unless, maybe you can tell the world about how stupid it is. Look, this thing's like an inch thick. What the hell are they thinking? It's the whole thing's plastic, but I mean, okay, look at this. Look at this right here. The keyboard doesn't stay in place, and even the act of picking it up pulls these pogo pins out. You can only really use this on a perfectly flat surface where you're prepared when you set it down, where you hold the kickstand out, because if you don't hold it out, it's going to close up on you. And then you set this. See, this won't work. There we go. Okay, this is usable. The keyboard, let's talk about good things about it, right? The keyboard isn't that bad of a keyboard. It's really not. It's not chiclet keys. I love chiclet keys. This isn't. But honestly, it doesn't feel terrible. It's the world's smallest keyboard, but it's not terrible. Relatively responsive. They put a .com button where the right shift should be, and I hate that. I loathe that. That's the worst. And the touchpad, it has no buttons, and it's not even one of those touchpads that like depresses and goes clunk clunk. It's just a capacitive thing, and so you can't game on it without a mouse. And I know nobody's gonna game with a touchpad anyway, but like you can kind of do it. You can't do it here. You can't do it here at all. Not at all. Not at all. Not even a little bit. So that kind of sucks, and the whole thing sucks so much that I wasn't gonna go get a mouse to plug into it. So, but I did see that like Counter-Strike Source ran at like 20 frames a second. It kind of sucked. Thing is quad core, but it's like a 1.7 gigahertz quad core that like super thermal throttles itself because there's no active cooling. But that's kind of a good thing too, right? It is completely silent. There is no fan. That's a good thing. I mean, let's say nice things about it, right? It is legitimately an x86 Windows PC. You can't argue with it. It is. It's quad core Intel Atom. It's got 2 gigs of RAM. That's kind of a good thing, honestly. It's so cheap. Like, I don't know that you can get. I mean, we're at the point now where you're buying a Windows tablet for what? Just barely more than the cost of a Windows license. It's a little bit absurd, honestly. So that's good. It looks kind of cool. I mean, if you didn't have to use it, if you could just look at it from a distance, I think it would look kind of cool. You'd be like, wow, what's that tablet? And then people would be like, that's an RCA. And you'd be like, RCA makes tablets? You'd be like, yeah, they do. I don't know. Like, I like these exposed little rubber bumpers on the back. It also has a DC charging port on the side, like a little barrel plug. I don't know why anybody would ever use that over micro-B. I think micro-B charging is cool. That's another nice thing about it. That's objectively cool. It's got USB-A. That's objectively cool. The Nextbook Flex 11 didn't have USB-A on the body. It had it on the keyboard. It's got HDMI out. That's objectively cool. That's good. If there were some way, like really, here's the other thing too. It's an absolute dog. It runs like a dog. It runs like a passively cooled quad core 1.7 gigahertz Atom with 2 gigs of RAM running Windows 10 should run. It's a dog. One other cool thing I saw with this thing is that you can actually get into the BIOS. That's relatively rare on these Windows tablets. They kind of purport to be embedded devices, and it's kind of hard to get into the BIOS. But in this case, it's either F2 or delete. I don't know. I mashed them both, got in there. It was a little bit weird because the screen goes like this. It doesn't go like this. So I guess they're rotating the screen in software in Windows or in the driver or something. But natively, I think the screen goes this way. Viewing angle's pretty good. Not terrible. Not terrible at all. Could be a lot worse. But you can get into the BIOS, right? So I don't think it would be that hard to run Linux on this thing. I really don't. I don't know that it would be that hard to run like Windows 7 on this thing, but I certainly didn't give it a try. I mean, I don't know. Like, if you needed a Windows tablet that you weren't going to take anywhere, like if you had an embedded use case for this where, God, I don't know, maybe you wanted to hang it on your wall. and build like a home automation platform around it or something. I don't know what you would possibly do with this. But when you're down at the $100 price point, you're starting to knock on the door of like even platforms like the Raspberry Pi. And I know that like a system on a chip development board is not a Windows tablet, but they're also not the same thing, right? It really depends on your use case. I'm actually considering what I could do with this. I'm actually considering building like a wall-mounted storage server. So I would have like maybe a solid state disk plugged in over USB, and I just mount this thing to the wall. And then you could run file shares off of it or something. You could probably run Windows Server on this, but I don't think I would. I would probably run Linux. It would probably be a dog. It would probably suck, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Where you can get an x86 machine with like a 10-inch monitor, touchscreen, keyboard for $100. Like, there's somebody out there that has a use case that this fits very nicely. I'm just not that person. I'm sure one of you needs a tablet, but I don't know. My Surface Pro eats this thing for lunch, and I expected it to. I really did. I didn't expect to find a Surface Pro killer at $100. What I expected was, I want to find a device that's half as good as the Surface Pro at a quarter of the price. And I think that's doable. I really do. There's some other devices I've got my eyes on. If you guys like me talking about these terrible, shitty Windows tablets, leave me a comment in the doobly-doo. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll talk about it some more, or we won't. I don't know. I'm busy with things. But, yeah, so RCA Cambio 2-in-1 notebook tablet. You can get it on Amazon at $105. Apparently, it also includes Office mobile apps. I don't care. The cameras are terrible too. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching.
Go ahead and follow us on Twitter. Check out our website, techhole.com. And as always, thank you for watching.
Siłam się wycisać.